All right, we are here. Hello, hello. I'm Sean Gold with OpenVC coming to you live from the 305. That's right, Silicon Swamp. And I'm here with Philipp Omenitsch. That's right, for our next exit interview. Philipp, how we doing?
Good, Sean. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to do this. I'm happy you're here. This is my first exit interview that I'm doing. I'm an exited founder myself. Every time I tried to pitch something or raise money, everyone showed me the exit. So I think you're a little further along than me. So I think it's going to help a lot of our viewers and a lot of our readers. The principle behind this is simple. We're talking about your entrepreneurial adventure for 1 hour and without any fluff. We're not sugarcoating anything. We're going to go from startup to exit. The goal is to go beyond the press releases and the social media and really understand the secret sauce of your success in order to educate and inspire future entrepreneurs. With that being said, are you ready to rock?
Let's do it.
All right. So, introduce yourself. Tell us about your background and your journey.
Oh wow, how much time have you got? I
Oh,
like to
come on,
talk.
it's your show. I'm just here.
So I'm Philipp Omenitsch. I'm from Vienna. Was born and raised here, and I went to university like so many others, and studied computer science, actually in machine learning. And already during university, I was very interested in startups for some reason. I think a lot of my family had influence on me. I had an entrepreneur in my family who already had his software business, and that looked kind of cool. So I wanted to do that as well. So I tinkered with stuff. I was interested in many things. And at one point, I was kind of trying to make a home access solution because the problem was I was living in a flat share with my friends, and when the pizza came, we always had to run to the intercom, right, to ring people up. And it was super annoying because it was almost 20 meters away, and as a lazy student, there has to be a better solution.
20 meters is way, that's a bridge too far, especially for college students.
So what I did is I took a Raspberry Pi, hooked it up to the intercom, made a web UI, and had people everybody in Fletcher could open the door then downstairs. It was called Open Door.
Wow.
That
Okay.
was kind of,
Very simple. And that was just, how long did that take?
well, I don't know. I mean, the prototype, I think we had it after quite fast, after maybe 1 month or so.
Wow.
Um, but then we tried to commercialize. We didn't really know anything, right? What's raising money? How do you do this? Do I have to work full time on this? All of that. Doing one is easy. Doing tens or hundreds, what is a customer, and so on. Well, I make it a bit shorter, right? So we found an investor who wanted to give us money actually, which was, and like looking back at that, it was really amazing that with that little knowledge we could found someone like that. But in the end, it didn't work out because they didn't really respond anymore. We got sidetracked, and I thought I wanted to finish my master's degree, and I kind of took the safe route there. But it was kind of my first interaction with entrepreneurship, and I think I got hooked. So for my master thesis, I wanted to work at a startup as well. I was very much into face recognition at the time, but there was nothing in face recognition in Europe. It was kind of about along that time when um, convolutional neural networks really became hot. And so when you could really start to use them on GPUs, but there was nobody doing it here. So I applied to a startup in Russia actually. And I went to Russia for 6 months and worked there at a startup. And it was a really good decision. Worked with a really great professor. And while I was there, we grew from 10 to 50 people. I was there a year. Um, so learned quite a lot. And then
What
while I was,
uh
sorry,
what year was this, if I can ask?
I think there must have been 215 or so.
Okay.
And then while I was in Russia, actually, I got also interested in crypto because there wasn't enough, right? Only machine learning. And I started organizing the Ethereum meetup in Moscow. It wasn't really difficult. I just posted on meetup.com in the group, and like people showed up. And after 5 meetings, there were already 50 people. And it was just the time, right? It was growing like crazy. And then when I came back to Vienna, I wanted to start my own thing. I knew that at the startups I didn't get any equity, um, So I wanted to always have equity, and I knew that going forward, I want to have equity.
Well, going back to that, because it's an interesting thing with startups, is that a lot of them, at least here in the US, they don't want to pay, they only want to give equity. In your case, you were compensated with actual money, but no equity, correct?
Exactly, yes. And I
And
wanted equity, but
would you have done it for equity only, or would you have done it for a hybrid?
no, I mean, I wouldn't have worked only for equity. At the time,
Mhm.
I was a student. I didn't have any money, right? So
Yeah.
I needed some money for sure.
Of course, because I mean, again, that's the things. I mean, we always see here, and I mean, startups always approach me, and they always have, the equity. So it's like, take all the equity you want, but don't take any money because we don't have any. And and to me, I'm very like adverse to equity, where it's like, don't even bring that up. Especially because it's essentially meaningless right now because you're a pre-seed, or in most cases a pre-ground. We don't even have the seeds. We just have the logo. It looks wonderful. You're gonna love it. So I had to ask that. So okay, so you wanted equity, but now you wanted your own equity. You wanted to control pretty much your own destiny and not have to be doled out in little small parcels of compensation. Correct?
Yeah, you make it sound really bad. I mean, I had fun. I learned a lot during that job. But yeah, going forward, I knew that I wanted kind of to have equity in something.
Mm-hmm. So you came back to Vienna, and then what was the next move?
So I actually went back to university for an entrepreneurship course because I didn't really have anybody to found a company with.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do it alone. Alone is boring. And there I met another Philip, because my name is Philip, and two Philips is easier than one.
Yeah, all
And
Phillips are friends. If you ask them, they're going to say that all Phillips are friends.
so we started getting very interested in crypto, and really hit it off. And our first idea was to start a cryptocurrency exchange, decentralized actually, because there was something going on with open banking and crypto, and we were very optimistic that banks would embrace this, right, and interact with
Mhm.
crypto. Boy, were we wrong. So
It's a hypothesis. It's a hypothesis we were testing.
exactly, we tested, and the hypothesis was completely wrong. Banks didn't want to have to do anything with crypto in 2016, but my co-founder, we got kind of requests to help with marketing for cryptocurrencies, and we looked at each other and we're like, well, let's do that, right? At least we have customers, there are people paying us. And so we started a cryptocurrency marketing agency, where we help people raise $13 million for ICOs, and scaled from like, we were 5 people in the founding team. We scaled to 15 people in a bit more than half a year. It was really like a hockey stick growth, right? It was a super crazy time with a crash in the end. So good experience.
Wow. So, I mean, you have a lot of different experiences, and I think that's something that founders need to understand is that the first idea may not be the one idea that is going to grow and is going to, become something. You have to really be flexible in your interests and what you want to pursue. And I think that's kind of lost on many because people, they instantly want to build the next Google or the next Facebook. And I feel like they're going to have to go through a variety of different, ideas and failures until they stumble upon something that is actually, worthy of growing it to be something massive. So I'm going to ask, what's next? What happened after that? Because it clearly wasn't the end. I mean, what happened after? I mean, you're already up to three different things right now. This would be number 4.
Well, I mean, so we kind of tried to pivot to a normal marketing agency, but we were not really passionate about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you really strike a good point that it's super important to just follow your passion, to follow your interests. That's at least my belief, that only if you follow what you really want to do and what you're interested in, that's when you can be successful. Because it's just the easiest way to motivate yourself, right? If you are doing something you don't really like, or you kind of like, but you're not willing to sit until 3 in the morning because you're so excited about it, maybe it's not the right thing.
No, of course. I mean, I resonate with that, and I agree with that 100%. I mean, you say you stay up till 3 in the morning because you're exciting, but what was your average hourly output on your startups per day? Because we all know startups are not typical 8 hours. So you have to be passionate because you're going to be spending the vast majority, let's say 90% of your time doing it. I mean, was your average day waking up early and staying up late? Was it, working until, say, dinner, from breakfast to dinner, and then calling it even? Or did you go back? I mean, how was your workflow, and how was your capability for building and really working on your passions?
It is actually a very good question, and coming and really nice leading into the next topic. So at the agency, we were really working crazy hours because it's project work, right? And at one point, my girlfriend got really upset because we went to dinner, and then during the dinner, I was on the phone call for 1 hour. I mean, it's just a dick move, right?
It could have been worse. It could have been the anniversary dinner.
I don't even know. Maybe it was. No.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, again, that brings me to another question, just because we touched on the topic now, is that essentially, being a founder is hard on just your personal life. I mean, just the fact that having friends, family, hobbies, relationships, they all tend to take a back seat to what you're building. So before we get to the next stage in the journey, I mean, what else did you have to face, and how did you kind of cope with that? Because I'm sure the girlfriend wanted to do girlfriend things like go to a concert or take a walk in the park, and I'm sure the family wanted to have you home for dinner, and I'm sure your friends wanted to play soccer. I'm sure we all have it, but how did you have to balance, is what I'm saying, with your personal life and your startup life?
Well, I think I'm a bit more in the European way on this approach. So I think I really tried to get my time off when I needed it. And going towards the end of the agency thing went so crazy that I really already felt that I need more time off and want to do something else, which actually also led me to my next company. So I took some time off after the agency, and we actually took the money from the agency and invested in a startup. It's called Tonestro. It's still around.
Oh wow!
It's doing fine. So that was quite a lucky one. And that's also how I got kind of into startup investing myself, right? And got interested in startup investing. And I was looking for the next thing to do. And having dealt with negative experiences during the agency life, lots of work hours, I knew that going forward, I wanted to do something more that helps people, and also work hard, but not like a maniac, let's say, So the project work from the agency is really different to when you do, I think, a startup and you build a product. Because yes, you have to work hard, but you kind of you have to sometimes react and do something, sit the whole night. But if you do it right, you don't have to work every day like super long or crazy, I mean, of course it happens if you want to. And I mean, there were nights when I was just coding, right? Because it's also who I am. It's interesting to me. But also there were nights when I finished at 5 and I went home because I didn't want to do anything anymore. And I think you really have to strike the balance.
Of course. I mean, we have, the hustle culture, which I think is terrible. But I think a lot of founders kind of fall into that, where, it's like you have to, if you don't have a 19-hour day, it's not going to happen. And make sure when you wake up, you start your morning by meditating, praying, making your bed, listening to an audiobook on tape as you stretch out and as you do a 2-hour workout and as you take calls. And then you start your day at 6 a.m. and go until, I don't know, 3 a.m., so you can be a success in startup. And it's, people need to have a balance. And I'm glad you brought that up, where it's like, if you felt like you were done at a certain time, you went home and that was it. And
I mean, like I said, it always depends on the time. There's times in a startup where it's stressful, of course, but there's times where you can be your own like man and decide for yourself how much you want to work. I mean, there are studies that show that yes, you like there is a diminishing returns in terms of hours, and especially when programming and some things, it happens so often to me that I sit until 2 a.m. and I cannot find the solution to something. And then I wake up the next morning, go to computer, and 5 minutes, the problem solved. What I couldn't solve yesterday in 4 hours,
Of course.
So yeah, there's definitely, you don't have to work always late, right? overloads your brain. I mean, people are different, but that at least works for me.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
So if I can get it done, at a certain hour, and I can get it done and have some time free, then I'm going to do that because just there's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. There's always later. So you essentially, which brings us to the next question. So what were you building? What was this is if my math is correct, this was your fifth, not including your investment, your fifth project that you're working on.
I think, yeah, whatever. I lost track of.
you do so many, it's tough.
But yeah. So basically, I was a bit burnt out, but not really. And then I met Manuel, who was building Pocket Coach back then. It was called now. It's called Stresscoach, which is a mental health app for people with stress and anxiety. And so what?
So everybody, so it's a mental health app for the entire market. Everybody with a pulse. I love it. So you met him. Tell us more. How did that go?
Well, I met him, and he had this product which he kind of coded together, like it almost looked like with duct tape, but it was working, and people were paying for it. And people were actually like thankful that he created something like that. They were really happy that they could find content which helps them calm down, which helps them relieve their stress, And it was kind of weird because I've never seen this in the crypto world, that people are like thanking you for building a product or selling them cryptocurrencies, right? The people were a bit more hostile. So I really liked that he was actually doing something net good. And I also thought I should kind of do something good in my life, right? And if you can make money and do something good, I mean, that's ideal, right? I mean, that's what most people want, I think.
Of course.
So we, in the beginning, started working kind of I was more like a consultant to him. I mean, I did it for free. I was kind of helping him with technical problems. But then over time, yes, we started working more and more together. First on Facebook Messenger, because there was kind of the era of the chatbots, right? We had our chatbot there. We were completely in Facebook Messenger. We thought that we'll hit a big home there. And then there came a time where we decided to raise money and go and create our own mobile app.
How much did you raise for this?
So we raised in stages. We also got a lot of government grants. And I think we raised around 160K from angels, euros, and we got another 200K from, don't quote me on the number. I always get it wrong.
It's only an interview. Let's just say it was a lot.
Okay. I only did the tech, right? Manuel was responsible for the finance.
Okay, so he was doing the fundraising, you were doing the tech. Because one thing, I mean, I want to touch on, which I ask, every founder, is just the fundraising aspect. And I know you were more on the tech side, but how was your experience? Was it stressful? Did it take a while? Was it annoying? Was it a lot of back and forth? And then investors would kind of, stop responding? I mean, again, you were on the tech side, but is there anything you remember about that period that, stood out to you as something you enjoyed, something that annoyed you, something that you would, do again if you had to, or something that you would never want to touch and you just want to stay forever in tech?
I mean, for sure, fundraising is not easy, especially when you haven't exited a company or have like a huge network of investors amongst your friends, right? And that was kind of what was happening for us. I mean, we knew some people, and that's also how we raised actually our round through our network, but it was like a super thin network, I would say. We went out, pitched, we met with Austrian angels, right? I mean, back then, I really wished a tool like OpenVC would have existed.
Here's the plug. What a great guy. So I mean, again, I think it's something that people need to realize, that fundraising there's no fun in fundraising. I like to make a joke that I put the fun in fundraising, but it's not. Whether you're a VC trying to raise from LPs or a founder trying to raise from VCs or friends or families or whatever, it's just not a fun experience. And here at OpenVC, I mean, we try to ameliorate the entire, experience with, the offering, so you can, take a lot of the headache and stress out of it. So thank you for the plug. You know, go to OpenVC, go to the homepage after this, and start your fundraising journey without the headaches and stresses that we all faced. But okay, so you dealt with that. I mean, it's common among founders. How long did the process take for you to raise to do your funding round?
Yeah, we really did it in a weird way because we wanted to raise 150 or 200K was the goal,
Mm-hmm.
and then we really couldn't find anyone. But we had one angel who gave us 50K, and we were super thankful for that. And we just went to work with this 50K, right? We were like, well, let's see how far we can get with the 50K, get more traction, and then raise more once we have more traction. And so that's what we did.
Okay.
With the 50K, basically launched the app and got, I think, 20,000 downloads in a week, which was not in a week. Maybe 10,000. Let's not put the number so high, but 10,000 downloads in a week, which was quite a big success. And then we raised completed the round with this traction.
So one thing I want to also touch on is that when you were doing this, this was your full-time job, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you said that you had paid customers, but was it enough to cover your personal bills, your rent? Okay. So, because again, a lot of founders, we talk about, the runway, startup runway, but I always like to get into the personal runway, the founder runway, as in the grocery bill, the power, the Wi-Fi. Was that money that you used from your previous endeavors to kind of fund your life as you built the startup? Or did you use some of the angel money for personal expenses?
We paid us a very small salary.
Okay.
Called like maybe a ramen salary if you want.
Of course, yeah. We have an article that I wrote on how much founders should pay themselves only on OpenVC, and the ramen profitable is up there. So yeah, it's a thing.
I think it was a lot less than 1,000 euros what we paid us in the beginning per month. So it was really little because I was used to living cheap from being a student, and I didn't really need much. But yeah, we also, like, if I would do it again, I would kind of pay us a bit more earlier because it was kind of tough and we were saving money sometimes in the wrong spots, So yeah, but cannot do everything perfect.
Of course. Well, a startup is the antithesis of perfection, because there's so many unknowns and there's so many things that can go wrong. And even if you're, equipped or even funded to handle, problems, there's still going to be new problems that people don't foresee. Okay. So you had a small ramen salary that didn't cover anything, but you still kept working and plugging away. So how did you stay motivated with so little money? And you're raising money and you're building this out. Something's there, but what was the internal motivation? Because at the end of the day, after working hard and putting all these hours into the startup, you do want to kind of treat yourself. You do want to kind of respect your time, and you do want to have some measure of success that you can enjoy before you actually get to that real level of success through an exit and acquisition. So tell me about that. I mean, what was it just mentally? What was it like? I mean, you're working on a mental health product, but how was your mental health knowing that all the requirements for perfect mental health, such as, your basic needs being met and, personal relationships and sunlight, let's say, I mean, all the things that we need to stay sort of sane and healthy. I mean, how did you kind of cope? I mean, especially with such a low salary and a heavy workload.
Well, I mean, I really enjoyed working on it, right? I mean, it was really cool to be the one person who could decide where the button goes or where the drop-down menu goes. But it's really cool if you launch a new feature and then you have people sign up and then they write you something, right? So we tried always to kind of get feedback from users, and it's just really cool when you see that the software you build really helps the mental health of other people. And that was the motivation in the beginning, and there was the motivation, I think, also going forward, at least partly. And also, I'm a like data geek, so seeing all the data of people who you really use your product. I mean, at some point you can see that actually, I think I forgot the number, but there were like hundreds of thousands of messages being sent on our app. Even though we only had 10,000 users, it's really cool, kind of, because you can see that you built this and it's being used. There's a lot of things happening. People
So
are
it's
happy
it's
paying for it.
essentially the personal fulfillment aspect is
Yeah,
what, went beyond, other aspects. It was just you were building a product that you were proud of. This product was making a real difference in the lives of the users, and it was a product that was benefiting everybody. It was a win-win. It wasn't just, here's a new way to book hotels. It was something that was just very, it was very passion driven, and it was just, you could see the real-time results of your user base, which, 10,000 users, it's not a million, but it's not zero. I mean, 10,000 users is, I think, is still remarkable, especially, it
yeah,
was
that was
just
the first week. Yeah.
yeah, it was right at the start. So how did the journey evolve from there? How did you grow? How did you scale? How did you eventually get to the next stage?
So we launched kind of with the hypothesis that we will launch for free. Product will be free to get more users. We'll launch in the US, and then we slowly will kind of monetize in the US. We'll introduce payment, and then we'll see the conversion rate. And then, I mean, if you like know a little bit about the mobile app industry, you know that the conversion rate affects, of course, your customer lifetime value, and then the customer lifetime value has to be higher than the customer acquisition cost, right? So we were always trying to measure and to get really to that point where the customer lifetime value is 2 times higher than the acquisition cost. And so that was kind of the main thing we were optimizing after that. So after we launched in the US, we tried for a while actually to improve the product, to increase the conversion rate. Also toyed a bit with the price because that also affects it. But we really couldn't make it work. And we knew also from conversations, from looking at competitors, B2C is really difficult in that space. And most companies, they pivot like also Headspace, but also smaller ones like, I'm missing the names now, but there's a lot of companies that pivot to B2B, or to B2B2C. And so we knew that in Germany, there's actually a way to make your app certified that insurances have to pay for it. And so we were really like, there was really like this one strategy meeting where Mario and I said, well, it's not really working in the US. What can we do? And then after that meeting, we said, okay, we'll go to Germany and we'll try to do this through the insurances. So we did like a huge pivot in the way. We also had to kind of fire half of our team, which was kind of sad, and hire other people, right? Because of the German language focus, because we had native speakers to create the content before for the US.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we managed to get the app certified. It's reimbursable by German insurances now. And we also managed to get one insurance on board, which I don't want to get into the details. It gets quite complicated. But
Yeah, please, let's keep it simple, just for me, let alone the readers.
But how it works is the person signs up to the app, and then they can check with the insurance if it's reimbursed, and that they get the money back after they finish the course, right? And that
Got
really
it.
worked for us.
So that pivot, it essentially worked out in your favor, correct?
Yeah.
And is that did you expand beyond Germany, or did you just keep it in that country and keep it in that sector?
No, we still actually were in the US, in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
and everywhere in the whole world. It's just that we really focused on Germany, and because through the reimbursement program, it's just much easier to monetize. Because people don't want to pay for their mental health, they know that it's important, but they don't really want to pay for it.
Yes, it's the most important thing they could pay for, and they refuse. So it's the one thing they need, but nobody wants to pay the whatever small fee per month it might be. Yeah, I've seen that myself. So how long after this pivot did you really get your next level of growth? And when did the exit come about, and how did the exit come about?
So after the pivot, we kind of saw, well, this was kind of working, but it was not, I would say, like, we were not on track to be a unicorn or anything anymore, because it's kind of niche and it works and it's nice, but it's not like we don't get 10,000 customers a day for this. And so we're really thinking, we actually did also deal with another company, which is similar, where they can create coupons and then the users can use our app and then we get reimbursed by the company. So we knew that we could go down this route. And another learning here was, well, we only offer kind of solutions for stress and anxiety, but there's also depression, there's sleep problems, there's this, there's that. And really the companies who in the B2B sector are willing to pay for it, they want a whole solution. They also want you to have therapists. They also want you to have a hotline maybe, or a center people can go to, you know. So they need really this full-time approach, and we only like covered this tiny thing. So for us, there were two options: either we become a platform or we integrate with platforms, right? And also the second option would have been to go down more in the medical route, to become a certified medical product. There's something called the DIGA in Germany. It's more for really sick people because our product is more like a wellness product. It's not focused on clinically ill people. But if you focus on clinically ill people, the insurances and the health system is paying for that, right? And there's ways to get more money per patient. But we didn't really both have a medical background, and it also takes a long time to build a medical product because you have to know what you're doing and to also test those things, do studies, right? And we really weren't interested in that. So we talked to a couple of these partners, these platforms, and one of them, which we made a deal with, they actually said, well, if you ever want to sell, just let me know, you know, like he just dropped it in a sentence. And then when we came back to this discussion, like a year later or something, we were like, well, I don't know, what are our options, right? We could go medical, we could create our platform. Do we want that? Where do we want to go? And so we started talking to them. And then we thought, well, if you're already talking to them, we should talk to more. And so we kind of opened the sales process. We really tried to run our own process with brokers, without brokers. It was like a whole deal with many kind of participants, right? And then in the end, we found a buyer, which really worked out nicely for us.
So it did really work out, or it didn't really work out?
No, it really worked out nicely.
Okay.
I mean,
And the person that dropped that in the sentence, that if you're ever looking to sell, that wasn't the buyer. He just started the process.
The buyer. They were thinking about buying us, and we actually have still good relations with them. But just they didn't buy it in. So
from the sly, if you want to sell, dropping in the sentence, it was a year later that you had the exit from a different party, correct?
Yeah, around that time. Yeah.
Okay, so what was the entire time frame that you spent on this startup, from meeting the co-founder, consulting, to actually selling it? What was the time? How many years?
I think 4 years. I mean,
okay.
The beginning was more on and off, right? And then more full time. So, but yeah, we sold this year in summer, or beginning of summer. We started working in 2018. So
okay,
that's 4 years.
All right, so that's relatively, I'd say, short cycle. Do you miss it?
I mean, the cool thing is how the deal worked out and the structure is that we sold our assets, like everything, the content, the rights, the trademark, everything. But we're still allowed to run the app and like collect the profits, right? The revenue. So
so you got a sweet deal.
We got a really good deal because the buyer is an American EAP who really wanted to buy us for the content and the technology, right? And we had all these customers in Germany, and they were like, well, why should we buy an Austrian company who is dealing with German customers? We don't have anyone who speaks German on our team. We want to focus on the US and Canada. And so they were thinking, well, we could buy it and then we could just kind of remove the app, or we were like, well, or you can just leave it to us. Our customers who are happy with the product and using it can still use it in the future, right? It doesn't cost you anything. We'll make sure of that. And it's actually cheaper for you because we'll just run the company.
So you're still involved. It's still part of your day-to-day.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty about software, right? It runs on its own. Yes, I'm involved. There's sometimes a customer support email,
Mhm.
but it's rare. I mean, we really try to automate everything, from the payments to the reimbursement process to really having kind of good emails, already templates and everything, right? So it's not really a lot of work.
Oh, wow. So it was worth the ramen salary at the beginning then.
Yeah.
Okay, so very nice. So I have to ask them because you've done, I mean, again, according to my calculations, my arithmetic, you were involved, in 5 different things. 1 out of 5 was the one that worked out. That was the one that you actually got the home run with, and it sounds like you got a really sweet exit deal. Um, so, what advice would you give to founders starting out right now that it might be on idea 1 or idea 2, and maybe are really impatient? They want to get it out there and start making a profit and try and be a unicorn or a decacorn or whatever stupid name they have, and really try and make this happen and have an exit in 3 years for 8 figures or 7 figures. I mean, everyone has different ideas. Most of them are kind of just going to stay that ideas. But as someone that actually had to pivot a lot and had to switch things up and went through the entire journey, what's the best advice you can give?
I think really like backward thinking is good. So you want to have a $1 billion company in 3 years. Well, what should happen in 2 years? How big does it have to be in 2 years? And in 1 year, right? And then what do you have to do and reach next month to be able to get to $1 billion in 3 years? So kind of really understanding what that means, like how many customers do I need? How much does one customer have to pay to be able to get there? That's really important because some people they have these expectations, but then they never think of the numbers, right? What's the math really? How does it work out? Because for Stresscoach also we were charging a customer $100 a month, a year. Well, you need a lot of customers to become a unicorn, right? With $100 per customer. So really think of where you want to be, if that makes sense, if you can get there. And then my second part of advice is, it never works out, almost never works out the way you plan, especially not on your first startup. Just learn as much as you can. And I think the big advantage when you start your own company is that after you've done it, like if you want to search for a job or do your next thing, it will be good anyway, right? If it failed or if it succeeded, it doesn't really matter, but you will learn something valuable and people will value you for having that experience.
So there's a stigma with failure. And I feel like with founders, I mean, failure is essential because, as you said, they're going to fail in different areas. The company might not fail, but they're going to personally fail in, let's say, customer acquisition costs. Let's say, underestimating the challenges of entering a new market. Let's say not having a product market fit that, in reality isn't what they imagined. So, what advice would you give to someone that, is facing failure after failure, but they know they can pull this out. They know they can make it as a founder, but they're getting discouraged just at the mountains that they face. And, I want to hear your thoughts just because, again, you have a very interesting background. You did a lot of different things. You pivoted, and you've succeeded where I guess the majority would have given up. So what advice can you give when it comes to dealing with failure after failure as a founder?
I think what was really kind of one lesson, also what Manuel helped me with, was to really reflect on the things we're doing. So sometimes you have these phases where you have to kind of run straight through the wall, right, and have to try as hard as you can. But if after 3 or 6 months the wall is not is still there, right, and you cannot break through, maybe you should think if you should change your approach. Really like take your time, reflect. Is that what I'm trying to do? Does it really work, or has it worked, or why it hasn't worked? Be kind of strategic or be structured about it. I have tried this, and that. What else is there that I can try? Have I exploited all my options? Do I need to pivot completely? I think that's really important. So you can go forward, right? But if it doesn't work for 3 to 6 months, or can be even shorter, depends on how you want to measure it. But there have to be this certain times where you really have to think hard and also like ask other people, right? Is that really not working because it's just not luck yet, or it didn't work out yet? Is it a time thing, or is there maybe something fundamentally wrong in my assumptions, in maybe, I don't know, whatever? It can be anything, right?
Correct. And I mean, there's this notion of shame involved with being a failure, in business and entrepreneurship, in kind of anything, really. Nobody wants to be a failure. Nobody wants to have to, especially in this day and age, make a big deal on LinkedIn on what they're doing, and then 6 months later have to like go on and say, oh, well, we've moved. What advice do you have for dealing with that stigma of a failure? Because it's really, my perspective for founders and essentially life in general is that everything is an experiment. You're testing a hypothesis. I don't really feel shame or failure if something doesn't work out, because that's just the nature of reality. Things aren't going to work out. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, and it comes to, I guess the amount of, press you give yourself as being this founder and you're going to disrupt the market, and it doesn't work out. I mean, what advice do you have as someone that's had to pivot, that, dealing with the stigma? I mean, did you care what anyone thought when, you went from one idea to the next? Did you pay any attention to anything on social media that you posted? Did you worry about what your parents were saying to you? What were your experiences with it?
So I think the worst time was actually in the crypto market, when everything crashed. And then also there were kind of some scams where we worked with. And I mean, why I'm even mentioning that, right? I just want to be really open about. And that was really the worst time, because we were thinking like, wow, there were people we helped raise money who kind of stole money. That's really, really bad. And people will always associate me with that. And it turns out that people know that I talk openly about it, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that bad because it wasn't my fault. So, and there was, I think, the most like fear for me. But when I talk to people about it, they say, well, could you have known? They asked me, did you know? I said, like, no, of course not. Well, if you didn't know, like, what could you have done, right? And so I think it's the same with startups. As long as you try your best, and as long as you believe in what you're doing, I think there should not, you shouldn't be afraid of the stigma. Of course, if you kind of think this might work, or it's cool to raise money, I'll take some money from investors and pay myself like a lot of money, right? Go to San Francisco, spend a lot of money, and oh no, it didn't work out after 1 year, but I will spend all the time partying. Well, I mean, everybody has to live with themselves, right? But I wouldn't want to be that person.
It only took $5 million, and I found out that it didn't work, but we got some great context. And don't worry, guys, it's only money.
Yeah, there was this great pool party though. I spent $1 million in it.
Yeah, it was great. We got the metrics. You should see our company Instagram. It's amazing, but there's a lot of that as well.
So
But again, I like to
always
focus on the reality.
like, what I want to say is there's always risk involved, and reputational risk, right? And there's also the risk of losing money. Yes, of course, and losing money of your investors. But again, like all the investors also who kind of I've worked with, or where we lost money or whatever, when they see how you work, and when you can explain why you lost money, and that you didn't just try and it didn't work, but you can explain why and what you learned, right? They understand that, and they will not kind of shame you for that. On the contrary, they will want to invest in you again, because you have this knowledge now, and you have made this experience, and you kind of like build this relationship with them, and you're more experienced, so they want to invest in you again, for sure.
Yeah, and I think one thing people need to understand is that, everyone, especially investors, know that startups are inherently risky. I mean, it says it. You could lose some or all of your investment. I mean, it says it in every single financial prospectus and every term sheet and everything. Like, it's startups are essentially, I always say they're suicide missions. Majority of the time, they're one-way trips. And people that are investing, if they don't understand that, they shouldn't be investing. So founders really shouldn't, they shouldn't, stay up all night. Oh man, how am I going to get their money back? I mean, yeah, it should be a concern, but at the same time, people that have that kind of money to invest, especially if they're giving small checks, they're probably making other investments and making other bets in other companies. So, focus on what you need to do to be a success. And, it goes to your point. If you're not, but you did your best and you learned and you fought it out, well, you have something to show. You have something to say, hey, we didn't expect the government to release something that affects our business overnight. None of us could have predicted it. And, people, they get it. And, essentially an investment into a startup is a leap of faith for an investor into a founder. It's a gamble. It's a calculated risk to, bet on that person and their vision and to make that vision a reality. And speaking of that, what's more fun, being a founder and starting a company or investing in a company and a founder?
I think being a founder is like more fun. Because I also tried to invest in more startups actually in the beginning of this year. But I think it gets so boring, and you see what all those people and smart people are doing, and they're so excited about it. And yeah, you can give them some money, but yeah, that's it, right? But you don't really know what happens in the day to day. You kind of maybe don't have all these investments, but you're not really. I don't know. For me, I want to be operational. I want to build something. I want to see what I built being used, right? And with investing, it's more like the pure financial terms, which can be, of course, lucrative, but I think it's just not so much fun.
Got it. And for European founder, I mean, does it matter where they're based? Do they have to go to Berlin or London or Vienna or Paris, or can they do it remote? Or do they have to be somewhere in a local, venture ecosystem to really help them, scale and grow and make the right connections?
I think it really depends on which area of startup you're in. Like if you, I don't know, in the financial sector, I think it really makes a lot of sense to go to some financial centers. Just be able to connect to so much more people in your industry, much easier. There's a lot of trust involved, also with fundraising, right? So meeting people face to face is important. I would advise maybe everybody who's fundraising to at least spend some time in London or Berlin or wherever. We did that as well. But I think it's possible, and people have definitely shown that. I mean, there's 2 unicorns in Austria. Most people don't know where Austria is, probably.
For those who don't, where is Austria?
It's in the heart of Europe.
Okay. And for those who are still wondering, where's Europe?
No, but so yeah, it is definitely possible. I think it's easier to raise money somewhere else, maybe in the US or in the UK, in London, in these big hubs, because it involves trust. But if you can show that you have the right traction, that you have the right metrics, and that you just need the money to scale, I think that we see, and especially Corona has helped with that a lot. I think have become more open to invest in like also in remote companies. Yes, I mean, make sure you understand that what company structure you have. People don't like to invest in Austrian or German companies, even though they still do. If they really want, they will make it work, But yeah, it has been really a deal breaker for some people.
Understood. Well, with that being the case, for all this talk of what you've done and all the fun you had, what are you doing right now? What's the current plan besides missing being a founder and still running sort of your exited startup a little bit and investing? What are you doing day to day?
So I was thinking a lot on what I should do, and I looked into startup investing, but that's not really like a full-time job, and there's just so much time So I tinkled and worked on some projects. But then I met with also lots of people. Actually, I was in London and Paris. I met with Stefan from OpenVC. Also applied to some incubators. But then I met Alex McDonald from SQL.
Oh, we know Alex. He did one of our roasts. Love Alex.
Oh yeah, true. So yeah, and he asked me to join him at SQL. I'm the CTO now of SQL, and at SQL we help professional athletes to invest in startups. We get the deal flow from top VCs, and yeah.
Wow. All right. Is there any of your top athletes that were investors that you wanted to meet, that you, even though you didn't need to be on the call, you were like, let me hop on this call?
Actually, I've met some, and it has been quite cool so far. I'm not allowed to say who it is because we of course try to we keeping this information private. Who is in our club? It's an invite-only club, right? But yeah, it's some really exciting people, and I hope we can share some more news on that soon when we launch, and I'm sure you will hear from us.
I'm looking forward to it. That's great. He was great on the roast. He's a super smart guy. I think you're gonna have a wonderful time with them. It's just gonna be fun, if anything. But now that I've learned your background and I know his background, and I'm sure he's involved with some other really intelligent people. Is he hiring?
Yeah, we are hiring actually. So we are hiring for a product designer in London, and a full stack engineer. And
nothing that I can help with. I was thinking athlete outreach.
We also like looking for an operator in Miami.
Oh wow, I'm in Miami, Silicon Swamp. Wow.
So, yeah,
I will reach out to Alex just because he's a great guy. That's awesome. But that's cool. I mean, it's really cool how the ecosystem in general. You drop a name and it's like, we know that person, or that's awesome. So that's really great. So that's it for my questions. I mean, I want to thank you for being here and doing this and sharing the journey, sharing what you went through, sharing what you're doing now. I mean, that sounds awesome. I mean, where can we find you? Do you encourage people to reach out to you on LinkedIn? Do you not want to deal with them? I mean, what's the best way to approach you if you want to be approached?
Yeah, on LinkedIn or Twitter. I have all the information on LinkedIn. I think that's the easiest way to find me.
Got it. LinkedIn. We will put a link below. Please add a message. Don't just add them for the clout. One thing I hate is when people add me for no reason, just to say they're connected. We don't want that. So please add a message saying you read his exit interview, you watched his exit interview, or you're an athlete looking to make moves. Just something, not just a blank message. Because I don't know about you, I delete all those. So yes, I want to thank you for being here. I want to, again, thank you for sharing your story. I enjoyed it. I think, founders around the world are going to truly benefit. And please keep us updated. Please let us know what you're doing. I think it's really cool. And I think your story is fascinating. And I think the next 5 to 10 years is even going to be even more fascinating for you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Have a good one.
Thank you.